Hey guys, and welcome on into the next NHL season preview show. And today we're going to be talking all about the Columbus Blue Jackets, looking at their additions and subtractions, upcoming free agents, possible lineup for opening night, as well as team future bets and player future bets for this upcoming season. And to talk all about Columbus, I brought in Lance and Kevin, both who came on last year's show, both returning again this year. But for people that haven't seen you guys before, maybe give a brief introduction of yourself. We'll start with Lance. Um, let people know a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Lance Schrock. I'm a writer for Inside the Rink. I cover the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I also am co-host with Kevin here for the Brew Jackets podcast. It's BREW, not blue. Not saying it funny. And we've had a podcast here for I think this is going on our the second. We're well into our second year, so we'll be you know continuing that here soon. And that's about it.
Awesome. Kevin, introduce yourself to the viewers.
Yes, hello there, everyone. My name's Kevin, and I do a show every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with my guy, Hefty Duck. I know his real name is Lance, but you know his nickname is Hefty Duck, and I call him Hefty Duck. So, Brew Jackets, it's just a fun Blue Jackets themed show every Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And the whole idea is just more of a more relaxed atmosphere where you can just sit down and take your time, have fun, and just talk about the Blue Jackets. And we have people come on all the time. Sometimes they don't like the Blue Jackets, but they're friends of ours and they have good hockey knowledge. So they little interesting perspective of what they think about the Blue Jackets from an outsider perspective, and so that's cool. And on besides that, as you can see in the screen right there, I also have a Blue Jackets themed fan group called Union Blue Soldiers that I do. I've been doing it since 2014, and every year we have a big march for the home opener to cheer on the Blue Jackets from our bar, which is the big Blue Jackets bar in Columbus, to Nationwide Arena where they play. And then, it's a lot of fun, and it's been featured all over the Columbus media. If you've been to a Blue Jackets game within the last like 5 years at least, you've probably seen the Union Blue Soldiers march on a scoreboard at a Blue Jackets game the last three times: 2021, 2022, 2023. The Blue Jackets organization has been involved with the Union Blue Soldiers march, and they've promoted it aggressively all over their social media and ticket commercials on TV and so much more. So, to sum it up, my name's Kevin. I do a show 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday with my guy Hefty Duck, and I got a fun Blue Jackets themed fan group, Union Blue Soldiers. So, thanks for having us on, Terry, and looking forward to talking about the Blue Jackets today.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that march. That's really cool.
It
That's
is,
awesome.
it is cool.
We are going to jump right into the first segment here, which is additions and subtractions. I usually start first here, so I'll continue doing that. And I always start with the subtractions list for each team. And when you're really looking at the top four guys in that list, um, they're really depth guys. I don't think losing any of those four guys are really going to affect the team that much this year compared to last season.
Right.
The Patrick Laine trade for Jordan Harris was an interesting one. Minnesota, from everything I hear, was in talks with Columbus for a Patrick Laine trade. The issue, though, is that the Wild don't have the cap space that Montreal does. So the Wild would have had to give up a lot more than Montreal did to get that deal done. So in the end, Patrick Laine goes off to Montreal. And then, of course, the head coach change between Vincent and Dean Evison coming in. And unfortunately, the Johnny Gaudreau passing, that tragedy just happening recently. Uh, the whole hockey world um, was affected by this. So, not just Columbus fans, not just Calgary fans, everybody across the hockey community was just devastated by this. So it's a really sad thing to happen, of course, and is going to affect this Blue Jackets team going into the season. Looking at additions, Sean Monahan, of course, coming to play with Johnny Gaudreau, and unfortunately won't be able to now. He is a big addition for this team. Should be the first line center here for the Jackets. Gambrell, kind of a depth guy. Same with Sawchenko. Probably won't see too much time. Jack Johnson, kind of an old veteran guy on the defense, which can't hurt. Jordan Harris. So Patrick Laine goes off away from Columbus, but the Jackets get a good D prospect in Jordan Harris. And when you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, you will see that they have prospects everywhere. Like this team is just filled with prospects. So a young team, but they've got quite a bit of talent coming throughout the next few years. James Van Riemsdyk actually just getting signed a few days ago before, or actually yesterday, I believe. So new news there. He'll be making the team. There's supposed to be one other addition. So after this video comes out, there will most likely be at least one more addition for the Jackets. And of course, Dean Evison coming in. So overall, when I look at the two lists, I do think that Columbus slightly got worse, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
really, when you're looking at this team's future, uh, having another season where you get a top draft pick is good. You want to keep. You can never have too many prospects because if and when the time comes, you can move those prospects for a top skilled player. So Lance, we'll start with you in this segment here. Additions and subtractions. What do you think about the two lists here, and what do you think of the offseason for the Jackets?
Well, I gotta address Johnny Gaudreau right away, and it's incredibly tragic what happened with him and Matt. And we've said it many times, but you know, he he's one of the biggest parts of this team, and there's no one you could possibly get to try to replace him um, as a player, let alone a person, And so that huge hit for the hockey world, huge hit for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and there's just no saving face there. And I don't think that, I mean, we could add 3, 4 players, and it's just not going to be the same. So after addressing that, I mean, looking at these two lists, that immediately makes the team worse. And so looking at the additions, to make it a little more positive here too. Sean Monahan, I mean, last year he played 83 games, which is kind of strange because he was on two different teams. 26 goals, 33 assists. I'm looking at that to help bolster the team a little bit. That if he would have had been on the Blue Jackets last year, that would have put him at first place in goals, 26. So Kirill Marchenko coming up in second with 23. So looking forward to him. I feel so incredibly bad that he had came here expecting to play with Johnny Gaudreau, and looking at their past friendship, man, it hurts to think about. Um, I don't know a whole ton about some of the other fellows here. Dylan Gambrell, I think we're gonna see him on the Monsters this year a lot. Jack Johnson's nice. We got with all these young guys, having some older guys like Jack Johnson can really help just that leadership thing, especially when we're looking at like David Yurchek coming up in the defensive uh, position, and just him being having someone to like look up to and lead him. Not that Orwensky isn't someone to look up to and lead. It's just that Jack Johnson just has the experience. Um, looking forward to Jordan Harris. we kind of just picked him up. Obviously, once again, another player losing that is just incredibly hard to replace is Patrick Laine. Um, y- to be fair, he hadn't produced here the what he can produce. We know he can produce that, and hopefully he flourishes somewhere else. But so it's like we played a whole season pretty much without him last year. So I'm already kind of used to not seeing him on the ice. And JVR, James Van Riemsdyk, this kind of came out of the blue to me. I hadn't really heard anything like in the works or anything at all. And I mean, last year, he plays winger. He's 71 games, 11 goals and 27 assists. So that's not bad. When you look at the Blue Jackets and their stats, that's pretty solid, especially 71 games. We need guys who can at least play 70 games or so because it's a rough year, rough time in Columbus. Um, and before I get to the coaches, I want to talk about a little bit about the subtractions yet too. Adam Boqvist, we kind of saw that coming. The next three, yes, they're depth guys: Jacob Zboril or Jakob Zboril, Malcolm Subban, and Alex Nylander. Now, the one here that I am very surprised that didn't even really get um, like a chance at another new contract was Alex Nylander, and just simply because, um, I mean, he had been a career AHL kind of guy, but when he came to Columbus, he gave his all, and he capitalized on that. And especially at this point where the Blue Jackets are looking for another forward or something, that would have been a nice to have around. And I already mentioned Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau. So as far as head coaches go, Pascal Vincent, first-year head coach, he's out. He's up at Montreal for their AHL team. And we get the Wild's very own former head coach, Dean Evison, who I've seen his play style in Minnesota. I'm not, like a daily follower. I don't know him as well as I imagine you know him, Terry. But I'm looking forward to this year. He's got the experience, and there's a lot of rookies and up and comers that don't quite have the experience that like Pascal Vincent. He was a good placeholder. I think that he was kind of given the short end of the stick too, with having to come in right after Babcock and just having to be thrown in that position right away immediately. So um, I'm just looking to see that gritty, hard play style that I've seen the Wild play, and looking at players like Marcus Foligno and how tough they play, and kind of likening him a little bit. I don't want to ruin what you said before the show. Likening him a little bit to like a Boone Jenner, just that tough work ethic. Like they will tough it out through it no matter what. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at. And I do believe you're right. I think that the Blue Jackets are a little bit worse off at the moment. And that is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately. But before we get to Kevin's breakdown here, the one thing about Columbus, as I mentioned, is all these young prospects. You never know when these guys are going to take that next step up. So there is potential if these young guys take that next step at once that Columbus could actually not be worse and they could actually
Yeah.
improve. So that's the thing with young guys is you don't know when they're going to take that next step.
Yeah.
Kevin, additions and subtractions, what are your thoughts here?
So there's an important thing to know here in regards to Jack Johnson. That, like, if you haven't followed the Blue Jackets within the last 10 years, you may think, oh, getting a guy Jack Johnson who's in his 30s, and from a hockey standpoint is getting up there in age. You think, oh, why'd they do that? But there's a reason for that. Is like Hefty Duck has perfectly said, is that the Blue Jackets have a lot of good defenseman prospects that will be here within the next year or two. Guys like a David Juracek, a Denton Matejchuk, a Stanislav Sposal, a Corson Coolemans. So you need a guy like a Jack Johnson that can help with that. But also, Jack Johnson was also here with the Blue Jackets when they were in a similar spot that they were not that long ago, 2011, 2012. they didn't have a very good season. They got the number 2 pick, and Jack Johnson got traded to the Blue Jackets. And Jack Johnson, he didn't make a big fuss about getting traded to the Blue Jackets at that point in time. If anything, he wanted to be the guy to help change things for the better and change the culture and turn it around. And ultimately, he did. He was one of those guys that helped build the Blue Jackets up. That during his time with the Blue Jackets were in the playoffs 3 times, and Jack Johnson was on the team for the Blue Jackets that to this day is one of 2 teams in the NHL that have won 16 games in a row, Pittsburgh and the Blue Jackets. Jack Johnson was on that team during the 2016-2017 season when when the Blue Jackets won 16 games in a row. Jack Johnson was there to help build that up. He's won a Stanley Cup with Colorado, but the fact that he's already been with the Blue Jackets and he knows what it's like to help build your team back up is so valuable. And he's here to help guide some of our young defenseman prospects, but also help build it back up again, just like he did the first time. Sean Monahan, a majority of the reason why he's here is yes, Johnny Gaudreau. Like, duh. That's very simple, very straightforward, very obvious. But it's not the 100% reason why he's here, because he's even said this himself when he's talked to people in the media. Everyone's, straightforward. First question they ask, "Oh, did you come here because of Johnny Gaudreau?" And I'm paraphrasing, but in Sean Monahan's own words, he's like, "Yeah, I came here for Johnny Gaudreau, but there's other reasons why. Because, well, Columbus is one of those, the Columbus/Columbus area is one of those places that it's just perfect to raise a family. You got a wife, you got a kid or two or whatnot. It's, good schools and whatnot. It's just perfect." And Sean Monahan, within the last year, has gotten married and he has a kid now. So that certainly has played a role in that as well. That, you want a place to raise your family, your wife, your kid, it's be okay. And Columbus/the Columbus area, that's one of the things that is good at. And I would put Columbus/the Columbus area up against just about any area in America. And in my opinion, Columbus would win that fight a majority of the time because it's just a great place to be. Jordan Harris, I like that trade because, from what I've read on him and I've seen the analytics on him, is that he is a young up and coming defenseman with the potential to be a good second pairing defenseman. At minimum, he's going to be a really good third pairing defenseman, just plays real good defense. And that's something that the Blue Jackets need because defense has been an issue with the Blue Jackets in more recent years. So anytime you get a guy like that, that's great. James Van Riemsdyk, I like this move as well. Well, I wish they got him under a different circumstance because, they kind of had to get someone like him because of the unfortunate death of Johnny Gaudreau, because now that they're not paying his contract anymore, which is $9.7 million, they are under the cap floor now. Now they're kind of left scrambling like, oh shit, like, uh-oh, now we have to get some guys to get, over the salary cap floor. And James Van Riemsdyk was one of those guys that they had to do it. But I do like James Van Riemsdyk as a player because, look, he's shown he can score a lot of goals. One season he scored 37, but you look at him, a lot of his goals he scores are on the power play and a good net front presence guy, a lot of dirty, greasy goals in front of the net. Where you just jam it in, tips, deflections. I like that. As for the I'll get to Dean Nevison, but I'm going to save that for last. For the subtractions, Adam Boqvist, when he was healthy, he was a good player for the Blue Jackets, and he got better as the season went along. Especially defensively, he did get better. Offensively, he's always been good. But the issue with him is that he just got hurt, and some of these injuries weren't even his fault. Like the Blue Jackets are in Calgary this past season, and Boqvist is sitting on the bench, and puck goes out of play, and the puck whacks him in the face, and then now he's out for a couple games because of a injury to like the face area, and it is what
Yeah.
it's. So And the thing about Boquist, he's only like 23, 24, so he's still young enough where he still has more potential that he could develop into something more. It's just the issue is with him, it's like, can you can you count on him to stay healthy? And as of now, the answer is no. And can you afford to pay someone that gets hurt sometimes? And the answer is no. And ultimately, they made the decision to buy out his contract. I agree with Hefty Duck. Alex Nylander is a guy that if you had to pick to bring back, that would have been the one because as soon as he came to the Blue Jackets, he absolutely clicked. He just dominated. He had a stretch there for the second half of the season where he had 10 goals in 17 games. It was just ridiculously good. And in that same stretch, he got a hat trick. He was just really good, a very versatile forward where he could play up and down the lineup. You put him third line, he was good. First or second line, he was good. And another impressive thing was that he showed really good chemistry with Boone Jenner and Johnny Gaudreau. Not everyone can play with a guy like Johnny Gaudreau. Some guys, they're good players, but they just don't have it. You got to have a little certain level of smarts and intellect to play with a guy like Johnny Gaudreau. And Alex Nylander showed that he can do that. So that would have been the guy to pick to bring back if you made that decision. Ultimately, the Blue Jackets made the decision not to do it. It is what it is. As for Patrick Laine, it's kind of like Adam Boquist in the sense that when he was healthy, he was awesome for the Blue Jackets. There was many moments where he was awesome. I can think back to a time during the 2020 2021 season when he first got to the Blue Jackets. His first 10 games was 6 goals, 4 points for 6 goals, 4 assists for 10 points. And then the 2021 2022 season, he had some overtime winners, and then he went on a heater where it was like 10 goals and it was like 10 points in like 18 games, and he had a hat trick, and he just played really awesome. And he won some games in the shootout and so much more. So just when he's good, he showed it. But again, unfortunately for him, he just got hurt. And you know, I don't fault the guy for getting help for going into the mental health program. I don't, but that's another unfortunate thing besides the injuries that just got in his way for playing with the Blue Jackets, and you just throw all that stuff together, just inconsistent. So it is what it is. So thanks for the fun times, Patrick Laine, but it just from a financial standpoint, it just didn't make sense to pay a dude $8.7 million when sometimes you're just inconsistent and you're hurt. And it just got to the point where Laine just didn't want to play for the Blue Jackets anymore. So that's why he's off to Montreal. Could have gone to Minnesota, like you said there, Terry, but it didn't work out. As for Pascal Vincent, honestly, in my opinion, I think the Blue Jackets kind of did him dirty there because last offseason from July, when the Blue Jackets picked Mike Babcock to be their coach until right before training camp, Pascal Vincent and the other coaches were preparing with Mike Babcock for a game plan of what they wanted to do this past season. And Pascal Vincent is preparing as an assistant coach. And then, Mike Babcock, controversial guy. Some people like him, some people don't. He's a proven winner, but then, he has a little shenanigans, some goofball stuff to him. And then, well, the goofball stuff happened and he had some phone shenanigans, and that's the reason why he's out. And now the Blue Jackets, unfortunately, in my opinion, did him dirty by just throwing him to the Wolves. It's like, okay, well, here, training camp is like in 2 days, and now you got to prepare. Oh, and the season's almost here. So, and you're the head coach now. So, well, best of luck to you, I guess. And, some bad, some good. The good I did like out of Pascal Vincent is that compared to their old coach, Brad Larson, there was actually some form of accountability. Defensively, it was better. There was improvement going from 58 points to 66 points, and you got more wins. So there was some good stuff there that came out of Pascal Vincent, but ultimately, you know, Don Waddell made the decision to, get rid of him and get Dean Evison. Um, so me personally, if he made the decision to keep Pascal Vincent, I would have been okay with that because I would have liked to see what he could have done with a full off season preparing as a head coach in his training camp and just how would he have done under normal circumstances. You give him a full off season to prepare, but I also get it. Don Waddell felt the need to get someone else, and he did that. And from what I've seen with Dean Evison, I like this. I really do because the Blue Jackets, they need someone that can help build them up, get the culture in the correct way, and like a little accountability. And we just need to be better, be more competitive. Dean Evison has shown that, and the thing that I like about that is, Kirill Kaprizov, awesome player for the Wild, but you look at him, he really took off under Dean Evison there. And the Blue Jackets have a lot of young up and coming talent on their team and in the future that will be here eventually. So you need a guy that's shown that he can help develop some talent, but also is not going to put up with people's bullshit and get some accountability and be more competitive. So that's what I'm kind of, thinking there. So me personally, I do think that the Blue Jackets are going to be more competitive. They're going to be a tougher team to play against. And if I had to take a guess, I'd suspect that they're probably going to be somewhere in the 70 to 80 point range. Not having Johnny Gaudreau, that does hurt. It's the truth. He was just so good for the Blue Jackets. He had a 5-point night against the Sharks during the 2022-2023 season. He had some awesome moments this past season, overtime winners, and just so good. And it's going to be hard replacing that. It just is. Yeah, that does screw the Blue Jackets to a certain degree. But you know what? I do feel like to a certain degree that this is going to be something that it's going to be like, rah, 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 let's go. We're rallying around Johnny Gaudreau. We're going to win this for Johnny Gaudreau. So I do think they're going to be better. So I've talked for a bit now, so I'm going to stop talking for now.
Yeah, it's all good. We'll move on to the next segment, and we'll kind of talk about like their point total later on. But I did want to mention when you were talking about Alex Nylander, I remember his goal scoring streak because I bet streaks. So
Well,
for new people watching on the show, when my NHL show comes back, I'm all about guys that are on streaks, and I ride streaks. So I remember Alex Nylander scoring goals last season because I made some money off of
nice.
him.
Yeah, the
We'll
hat trick.
go.
He was one of 4 guys with the hat trick last year.
Yeah, he was good. We'll go to the second segment, and this one we can be pretty brief with. We'll start with you, Lance, for this one. There's some guys in this list. You don't have to go over everyone. Who do you think the the Blue Jackets should be? Baseball. Baseball's in my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who do you think that the Blue Jackets should be re-signing on this list? Who are the most important guys, and who do you think would be okay if they moved on from after this
Uh,
season?
I see 3 names right away that stick out to me, and I'll just give you these guys because the other guys they're quality guys, but okay. First one, forward, Dmitry Voronkov. This guy's a beast. He is one of the scariest guys on the ice. And no matter who else is on there with him, I give me a name, and he's just about as scary as them. He'll hold his own. But also, he's great at crashing the net. Making he works so well on that Russian line with Marchenko and Chinikov. But Voronkov, it's RFA, so I mean they'll probably work somehow with him. But another one, obviously, RFA, and that is Jordan Harris. I want to see what he does. I'm really excited to see, what. Am I confusing this guy with someone? Hold on. Nope, I'm not. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this guy does. He's really young yet. He's like 24, and just not quite sure what to think of him yet. And then the last one is Daniil Tarasov. Last year, there was a little bit of an issue with Elvis Merzlikins and the whole, like, "Is he gonna be traded? Is he not? Blah, blah, blah," all that junk. Well, it was a mistake, it was a miswording, language barrier, but, he said Elvis Merzlikins was like, "I'm not a number 2 goalie," whatever, and, uh well, he said, "I'm a number 1 goalie," but he said something like that, like, "I'm a number 1," or I won't be a number 2," or "I won't be a backup," or something like that, and, Daniil Tarasov's gonna give him a run for his money for that, which personally, seeing a little bit of competition in that spot, awesome. I love Daniil Tarasov. I think him and Jet Greaves will be the future goaltenders of this franchise, um, and I just like that, I he's gonna need re-signed, I believe. I think he's gonna have a great year this year.
Awesome. I'll quickly touch on what you said before we get to Kevin, and then I'll give my breakdown after. But yeah, Merzlikins with those comments, um, he has to put up much better numbers if he wants to make that kind of statement, because his numbers are not a starting goaltender's numbers. Now, of course, you have to look at the team he's had in front of him, but that's no excuse. He shouldn't be making comments like that with the numbers that he has.
Right, like, be a
So
little
I agree.
humbler, more humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, upcoming free agents, some depth guys in this list, but who do you think are the most important guys for the Jackets to re-sign this offseason?
So first, with the whole goalie thing, it's Danil Tarasov has shown that he can be an awesome goalie, not just over in the KHL in Russia, but he showed it with the Monsters in Cleveland, and he's also shown it when given the chance to play for the Blue Jackets that he can be an awesome goalie. And he really came on strong during the second half of the season this past season. It was just awesome. There were games that the Blue Jackets won because of Danil Tarasov, and you look at him, the dude is 6'5", 200 plus pounds. And then you add in all that extra goalie equipment on him, and that adds a little extra weight to him. And when you watch him play, he takes up most of the net. There were, there were times where just teams would be playing the Blue Jackets and Danil Tarasov is a net, and you could see them. They just get so frustrated because they're like, where are you going to shoot it? He's taking up most of the net. Where are you going to shoot the puck? And I got a kick out of that, a little enjoyment just watching other teams getting frustrated at Danil Tarasov. Like, man, like where are we going to shoot this? The dude takes up most of the net. As for Elvis Merzlikins, inconsistency. That's been his story. Sometimes he looks awful and sometimes he looks good. But, like you said, Terry, there's some truth to it that sometimes it's not his fault that the team in front of him, the defense, hasn't been the greatest. And it's hung him out to dry to where he's given up some goals that he shouldn't have given up, and it's not his fault. But, because where they've had games where it's just like a shooting squad and he's stopping everything he can to the best of his abilities. And then he can only do so much, and then he lets one in. But then again, you're right, Terry, is that on the flip side of that is, while that's absolutely true, to a certain degree, you got to try your best to stop your pucks, and you can't use that as excuse. And it's kind of like, oh, I'm not a number one goalie. Well, the context of that was after this past January when the Blue Jackets beat the Vancouver Canucks at home in a shootout, 4-3, and he made those. I'm paraphrasing it, but he made those comments after the game, and I'm not a backup. I'm a number one goalie, and I gotta let the monster come out in me and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, but you gotta do better. The one moment of Elvis Merzlikins where he really did stand out was during the 2019-2020 season. There was a stretch there from December 2019 to January 2020 where he was just absolutely awesome. Got multiple shutouts, got rookie of the month, and all this really good stuff where he helped the Blue Jackets win a lot of games. And looking back on it, that's a big reason why the Blue Jackets made the playoffs that season and were able to knock out Toronto because of what Elvis Merzlikins did. But ever since then, it's just been inconsistency. Sometimes you're bad and sometimes you're good. And you're right, Terry, is that if you want to have those types of comments, you should back it up and play better. It would be nice if you had a better defense in front of you that would help, but you also got to help out your defense. You just got to, because they just played better. You just got this feeling, whether if this was the case or not, that the Blue Jackets played better in front of when Danil Tarasov was in the net. They just seemed to play better. I don't know if that's true or not, but it just seemed that way. So Elvis Merzlikins, you've shown that you can be good. You just got to keep going and do it again, because the Blue Jackets are paying you just over $5 million, and that's money that you should be playing, better. It would be less of an issue if they're paying you like a million or two, but they're not. So you need to play better. Um, as of now, Sean Corrali is an important one to me, because an issue for most of the Blue Jackets' existence has been center depth. It is. For a majority of the Blue Jackets' existence, they haven't had good center depth. They do have Caden Lindstrom and Luca Del Beluz, and they do have other good center prospects that are coming, but we don't know. Probably within the next year or two. But as of now, I would probably bring back Sean Corrali as good center depth, and he's been a good third line, fourth line guy for the Blue Jackets, a guy that you can count on for, a little offense, defense, penalty killing. He's good at faceoffs and good center depth. I'd probably
Local guy too.
He's a local guy too. He's from the Columbus area, so I'd bring him back on like a cheap 1 or 2 year deal. And then Dmitry Voronkov, I'm with Hefty Duck there. I'd bring him back. Obviously, restricted free agent, but still, I'd bring him back because he's 6'5", 240. And again, he's a center who can also play wing. He played good on the Russian line this past season with Yegor Chinikov and Kirill Marchenko. And Voronkov is for versatility. He can play, third or fourth line. He can play first or second line too. And again, big, 6'5", 240, right in front of the net, dirty, greasy goals, tips, deflections. He has a good shot too. He scored some goals with an awesome shot. So it's there. So I'd keep him. But depending on how it goes, maybe you bring back James Van Riemsdyk. Matthew Olivier, I like him. He's a good third line, fourth line guy, good defensively, penalty killer. He can give you some offense, but that's not why he's there. And he's a tougher dude and can fight. He beat the shit out of Matt Rempe this past season, absolutely destroyed him. So that's why he's there, just more of a good, penalty kill, defensive, broad, tough guy sort of thing. You could make the argument to bring him back, but if you didn't, that's okay. Ivan Provorov, he's been a good defenseman for the Blue Jackets. He's been a good placeholder to keep a spot until all of our defenseman prospects are ready. And he's a consistent guy. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get some good defense out of him, and you're going to get some offense out of him, and you know that he's going to play. You need someone to play 20-plus minutes in every day, every game. That's Ivan Provorov. Jordan Harris has shown he can be a good defenseman, and maybe the potential to be more. Be interested to see how that goes. Maybe he does well enough, they bring him back. Jack Johnson probably doesn't come back after this season, but maybe if he plays good, you make the argument to bring him back. Jake Christensen, he's been a good defenseman for the Monsters. And look, when he's played for the Blue Jackets, he's shown he can be good too. He's one of another young up-and-coming defenseman that they have. So maybe they bring him back. Maybe they don't. But me personally, my three guys I would absolutely bring back is Sean Corrali, Dmitry Voronkov, and Danil Tarasov.
Okay. I completely agree with Lance. It's Voronkov, Jordan Harris, and Tarasov. You got to keep these RFAs. These are young guys that we haven't even really seen their full potential yet. Especially with Tarasov, goalies take longer to develop, so you probably haven't seen his best yet. So he's definitely somebody you want to keep around. Jordan Harris, I can't see them trading away Line and then not re-signing Harris. It just depends on the length and obviously the cap hit. But yeah, it's pretty easy here with this list. UFAs, Depends if the Jackets have prospects that they would prefer to fill those spots. Maybe they let some of these UFA go. But again, depth guys, they can be replaced in free agency. Go to the next segment, and we're not going to go over every player here, but this is just a possible lineup on what it could look like for opening night. I'll start here first with this one. Boone Jenner. We were talking about him before the show. He is Dean Evison's guy. Boone Jenner is exactly the type of player that Dean Evison loves. So you can expect a lot of ice time for Boone Jenner. It would not surprise me if he leads the team and forwards at least in ice time. That would not shock me at all. Dean Evison will have this guy out on the ice whenever he can. The top line I like. I will say with Kirill Marchenko, there is only one Kirill the Thrill in the NHL. I know Columbus Blue Jackets Twitter account loves to call Kirill Marchenko Kirill the Thrill, but no, there's only one Kirill the Thrill. But I'll keep that there. That second line is just a wild card.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, when are these guys going to take that next step? Because if we see those three guys take that next step, then all of a sudden Columbus has two strong scoring lines. And then you look at that third line, there's some potential there as well, especially with Sillinger and Voronikov. So there's a lot of youth in this team and a lot of things to look forward to in the future. The defense, Damon Severson, I actually forgot to put on the additions list. So there we go. Something I forgot. But obviously,
you're all right.
sorry?
You're all right because they got him last offseason.
Oh, they did. Okay. Okay. My bad. My bad. But Werenski, obviously, the Jackets want him to stay healthy. They want him to stay healthy. Provorov and is scheduled to play with Jirasek. Of course, this is just depth charts. What they
Yeah.
have here. Jordan Harris is on the third defensive pair. Jack Johnson currently scheduled to be kind of a depth guy that may or may not play that much. Overall, looking at this lineup, there's a lot of youth, and when, as I said, when they take that next step, Columbus could be improved. But if the young guys struggle, this could be a rough season for Columbus overall, and another top draft pick, which, as I said before the show, is not a horrible thing. You can never have too many top 5 draft picks because a lot of the time you get really good talent with that.
Yeah.
Kevin, we'll go second here with you for this one. Just your overall thoughts about the lineup. Is there any guys you would maybe move around? And what do you think about this as a possible lineup for opening night?
Honestly, I think this is, pretty good here. The thing I do like about that top line is that you have two guys that can play center, Boone Jenner and Sean Monahan. I like Kirill Marchenko too, but he's a winger. But versatility, I like that. You get kicked out of the faceoff for some reason, you can put Boone Jenner in there to win the faceoff because Boone Jenner has been one of the best players that the Blue Jackets have had in a bit. He's versatile. He can play on the wing. He can play center. He can play up and down the lineup. He's good on offense, defense, penalty kill, power play. He's really good at face-offs. A lot of his goals are deflection goals, greasy goals right in front of the net. That's just what he is, and he's just good. So you get a guy like a Boone Jenner on your line with another center, a little versatility that, hey, if Monahan gets kicked out, you can put Boone Jenner in there and you still got a good guy that can win you a face-off. Kirill Marchenko, I like him. In his 2 seasons with the Blue Jackets, he's shown that he can be an awesome player. He's got an awesome shot, a goal scorer. His first season with the Blue Jackets, he set a record for most goals ever by a rookie in Blue Jackets history with 21. And this season he broke, he got more goals and with 23. So he's good, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes and if he takes that next big step. The thing with Kent Johnson is that he's shown he can be a good player, but you know what? He is a smaller dude, and when you're a smaller dude, there's a little extra time that you learn how to play when you're a smaller dude. And sometimes this past season, he got pushed off the puck because he was a smaller dude. And part of the process is just learning, how to play when you're smaller. And he's had to put on some weight so he just doesn't get pushed off the puck. But he's just an awesome potential to be an awesome player. He can score some goals, but he's more of a really, play facilitator, good passer. Adam Fantilli, stud, good first season, and would have gotten more points, more goals, assists if he didn't have a freak injury in Seattle where his got cut, his calf, and it started bleeding and everything. He got hit up against the boards and kind of a freak accident where the Seattle player, not on purpose, just kind of, had his skate come down and cut his calf open, and that was the end of that. He didn't play a game for the rest of the season, but he absolutely has that potential to be our center of the future, along with Caden Lindstrom when he gets here eventually. Yegor Chinikov, he's a sniper, an elite shot. He has the ability to score goals like crazy. In the way he was playing the last two seasons, he easily could have gone 20, 25 goals, maybe 30, but he got hurt, and that's what put an end to that. Dmitry Voronkov, Cole Sillinger, Justin Danforth. I like that line. Cole Sillinger had a much better bounce back season. His rookie season was good, 16 goals, had a hat trick. The following season, not as good, sophomore slump, but this season, much better, way better. And he was the guy that was playing first line, second line minutes towards the second half of the season. And he was getting those big matchups against, Crosby and, McDavid and McKinnon, and he played pretty good against them. Danforth is just a good third line, fourth line guy. Defense, some goals. So James Van Riemsdyk, I like that. Sean Corrali, I like that. Matthew Olivier. Line, because that was one of the best lines that the Blue Jackets had this past season. Maybe not, but you could make the argument that maybe Cole Sillinger, if he plays good enough, you could also use him as a potential first line, second line option. Obviously, you'd have Sean Monahan and Adam Fantilli first. And as the season went along, I wouldn't be surprised if, Adam Fantilli got more, first line minutes every so often, because that's where they eventually do see him. Zach Werenski, Damon Severson, I like that. That was a good defensive pairing at times for the Blue Jackets this season. Ivan Provorov, David Juracek, Jordan Harris, Erica Branson, I like that. Erica Branson had a really good, strong season this past season compared to his first season. People ripping on, why did the Blue Jackets sign him? Oh, that was a bad contract. Well, turns out, that was a good contract. He had a good season. People not running their mouth anymore. Christensen, Jack Johnson, I like that. And the goalies, I like Merzlikins. He needs to do better. And Danil Tarasov, he's shown he can be good. And I do believe, like what Hefty Duck has said, he's most likely the guy for the Blue Jackets in the future. I could argue maybe one or two changes, but honestly, as it currently stands right now, I like it. And Trey Vasilevsky's a guy that he's good in the minors, can score a lot of goals, but he just hasn't been able to put it together with the Blue Jackets. And maybe this is his time to do it because, well, unfortunately, Johnny Gaudreau has moved on from this world, and that's going to open up some spots for someone else. So whoever takes advantage of that is going to be to their beneficial. So interesting to see how this goes. So let's just see what Hefty Duck has to say here.
Perfect. Lance, what are your thoughts?
I mean, as the roster sits right now, these lines just make sense. All of them do. I was gonna say too. I love that Trey Vasilevsky is on here because I've been saying for years. I really think giving him a bit of an extended stay in the NHL it would give him a chance to show capable of more. Um, so top line, right now, I don't think this is super debatable. As the season goes on, we'll see if Fantilli can move up, Chinikov can move up, something like that. But also, possibly like moving up like a like a Fantilli or wh- putting more experience, like one more experienced guy on that line could also possibly help out with those young guys. It's um, uh, Johnson's third year, Fantilli's second, Yegor Chinikov's third year in the NHL too. And so, just getting someone older, like the next line here. To me, this is a fantastic line. I love it. Fronkov, Sillinger, Danforth. Um, Big fan of that. Maybe even like I like Silly at the center. Otherwise, you could maybe push him to wing and push Sean Corrali up or something. But yeah, this is pretty accurate to me. Defense. I don't know that there's much else you could do with this. Maybe if you wanted like a true third pairing, like I don't ever see Harris and Yurchek going out there together much because once again, they're younger guys, and we have Provorov and good Branson to help you know uh, keep keep everything straight, keep everything going good. Um, and I like Kevin said, Jack Johnson possibly being in and out of the pairings as well too. Uh, can't wait to see uh, what he does. So, and then as far as the goalies go, yeah, we're gonna see flip flopping back and forth. I think this whole year, I think it's gonna be a battle, and I think it's gonna be good. I can't wait to watch that. You know, as far as I'm aware, everyone gets along fairly well, and especially after this early tragedy, I really hope these guys are gonna be here to support each other, no matter who gets the position. I'm sure that Elvis Merzlikins would not be offended if Daniil Tarasov gets that starting spot more if he's doing better. That's just if you're doing better, you get the spot. So I'm yeah, it's not ideal. I think having Boone Jenner on the top line. He's an amazing player. He's like literally last year. I mean, he was on pace for the most points on the Blue Jackets. He always is. He's always in there. He always has like the most ice time. There's a reason for that, like we talked about earlier. You know, just absolutely plays balls to the wall, plays with guts and grit all day, and I think that um, Everson's gonna like that. But also, he's not necessarily like if he was to be on another team, he would probably be a second line kind of guy. And that's all. No offense to him at all. I think he's probably like he is currently going by stats alone and points alone, he's the best player on the team. So, um, yeah, nothing I can argue with super like a whole lot here. Maybe the depth guys, switching them out with some other depth guys. That's about it.
Awesome. Yeah, if Jordan Harris and David, I don't want to pronounce it wrong.
Year check. Yeah.
Juracek. If they were together on a pair, they would be the third pair, and they would see very little ice time with Dean Evison, because I would I would think either that would be the case is Gabranson and Provorov. Um, Dean Evison would probably run with the top two pairs for the most part if the rookies were together. So probably better to split them up. And then Boone Jenner, yeah, he on a Stanley Cup contender, I would argue might be on a third line for like one of the deepest teams in the NHL. But with Columbus here, Boone Jenner is going to be Evison's favorite player, so he's safe on that top line unless he falls off a cliff stats wise, and even if so, uh, he's the exact kind of guy Dean Evison will like. Moving on to team future bets here, and I'm going to start off right off the bat with kind of a crazy prediction here. And as much as I hate to say this, uh, Minnesota opens the season at home against this Columbus Blue Jackets team. And I think Columbus wins that game. They are plus 180 underdogs, huge underdogs in the first game in Minnesota. But Dean Evason's already mentioned how if a coach says that it doesn't matter when he faces his former team, that's a total lie. It definitely does matter. Dean Evason wants to beat Minnesota, that's for sure. But also the Johnny Gaudreau passing, I really think it's it's going to be a motivating factor for the Blue Jackets, especially early on in the season. So you have them motivated to win for Johnny Gaudreau. You have Dean Evason wanting to beat Minnesota. I think, as much as I don't want it to happen, I think that the Jackets are a live underdog for the first game of the season.
Mhm.
Now, looking at the season as a whole, obviously the first four bets I have zero interest in. When it comes to the point total here, the Jackets last year, if you could bear with me,
66.
66. Now they're at 66 and a half. The issue for me is that they are the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I think that's kind of fair to say. I do think Montreal, another team with a lot of young prospects, is going to continue to improve. They were 10 points above Columbus last year. Pittsburgh, obviously, a lot of people look at them to take a step back, but 20 points is not realistic in my thought. So I see Columbus finishing at the bottom of the East. It all depends on if those young players take the next step. If they do, Columbus can get over 68 points. But for me to put my money on it, there's just too many questions. And unfortunately, least points in the NHL. I do think that Columbus is going to be fighting for that. I think they're going to be in the running for the worst record in the NHL. I do like Calgary, I believe, at plus 1,300. I think Calgary will be a very low, a very bad team this year. San Jose is also, it's San Jose and Columbus are the two favorites right now to finish with the least points in the NHL. And
Yeah.
I think it'll be them in Calgary fighting for that. So overall, team future bets. Other than opening night, I really don't have a lot of positive things to say, but sadly, that's just the situation right now.
Fair's
Lance,
fair.
you're up second. What do you think about these bets? What do you think about the Jackets' point total? Where do you think they finish this season?
Um, I unfortunately have to agree with a lot of this. I mean, and to be fair too, I think after this, the John Gaudreau tragedy this offseason, I honestly think winning any games at all is gonna be great for the Blue Jackets. They really need just, um, a couple wins early on, and we'll see where it goes from there because, yeah, I mean, they last year finished goals against, 31st out of 32. Uh, and they were 25th of 32 in goals for. So, sh adding a few guys in the offseason, subtracting a few, and then the fact that the team is generally considered a little bit worse than last year. I agree with all of these. I mean, like, the opening night, I can see definitely what you're saying there, especially with Dean Evason, and then also, just this year is gonna be, as Kevin said earlier, this is gonna be played for John and Gaudreau. There's
Mhm.
not really, much else, and if they break 60 points, that's great. Um, I think expectations are definitely lowered at by this point. Uh, back when Johnny Gaudreau signed, immediately everyone's like, "Playoffs, playoffs, playoffs," and, like, it's not one guy's not gonna make that happen, but, um, I'm so curious as to how the team is gonna react under Dean Evason, and I'm curious if he will get them going kinda like John Tortorella did a bit, and Tortorella, I mean, he made it to the playoffs several times, most of the time he was here, actually, and I I literally can't argue with anything, although I probably put the 90 plus points at like a like a plus 5,000, um, is all. I doubt that we're not looking at playoffs this year. We're looking to bolster the team. We're looking for the team to improve. That and
Awesome.
yeah.
I will say with Dean Evison before we get to Kevin, he is a regular season coach. He is a great regular season coach. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's able to get the best out of a lot of these Blue Jackets players. His issue though is once you get to the playoffs. But as we kind of thought here, the Jackets making the playoffs is probably not going to. It's plus 1,700 if you do think that they're going to have a great season and somehow make the playoffs. Um, Kevin, what do you think here about the Blue Jackets season, upcoming season here?
I think if I had to take, I know I said it earlier in the show, but if I had to take a guess, I think somewhere in the 70 to maybe 80 point range. I'm not saying they're making the playoffs. It is a possibility, but I don't think that's happening. I will say that I do think they are going to be better, and I'm not saying they're going to be last place. Maybe they're seventh or sixth. That's where I'm at with this because we've said it on the show, and I'm going to say it again, is that I do believe there is a rah-rah, like, let's go. We're doing this for Johnny Gaudreau sort of thing. We're going to win it for Johnny Gaudreau. There is a little extra motivation. And you mentioned, I'm paraphrasing it, but Dean Evison, like, yeah, like that does mean something to me. Well, that in terms of, beating the Wild. Where that comes from is that was his opening press conference with the Columbus media when on the day of when he got introduced as the next coach for the Blue Jackets. So there's obviously something there. And I do agree with what Hefty Duck said there is that you look at the last time that the Blue Jackets were more good on a consistent basis, it was under John Tortorella, a similar coach like a Dean Evison, a guy that, he has a certain standard how you have to play, but he can develop talent, but also he does get stuff out of guys that other coaches just can't. Because under Tortorella, the Blue Jackets made the playoffs 4 years in a row. They had a 16 wins in a row, 108-point season. They knocked out Tampa Bay and Toronto in the playoffs. And a perfect example of Tortorella getting something out of a team that maybe someone else doesn't was that 2019-2020 season where injuries and a whole bunch of other stuff up the wazoo just getting in their way, that realistically that's a team that shouldn't have made the playoffs. But they did because of John Tortorella, his ability to get stuff out of guys where they're able to win some games because of him, and that's why they make the playoffs that year and knock out Toronto. So again, I'm not saying playoffs, but I do think they're going to be more competitive. I do not think it's going to be last place, maybe seventh or sixth, and you get yourself another top 10 draft pick like they've been doing in the more recent years, and you add to your already awesome prospect pool, which is ranked one of the best in the NHL, and you just keep going from there and continue to build yourself up. Their old GM Jarmo Kekalainen, he's done a lot of work to help build up the Blue Jackets with a lot of, with some trades and some good draft picks that get you some prospects. And Don Waddell's done that too with his first draft. That's just what it is just be more competitive. And I do believe that they are going to be more competitive, more, defensively sound under a guy like Dean Evison. So, that's where I'm at. I think they're going to be more competitive, 70 to 80 point area, not last place. And they're just going to be one of those tougher teams to play against, especially, maybe you're not making the playoffs towards the end of the season, but you're playing a team that desperately needs to win games to get in. And the Blue Jackets could be one of those teams where, you know what, we're a pain in the ass team to play against, and we're going to beat you, and we're going to make it harder on you to make the playoffs. Maybe you make it, maybe you don't. It actually happened this past season. The Blue Jackets are playing Pittsburgh in late March. It goes to a shootout, and the Blue Jackets beat them. And looking back on it, Pittsburgh just missed out by 1 point. had they beaten the Blue Jackets, they would have gotten in, but they didn't. So, they didn't get in. So again, I do think the Blue Jackets are going to be better, more competitive, not last place, not making the playoffs, but they're going to be more competitive. And having a guy like a Dean Evison is absolutely going to help out with that.
All right. We're going to finish off the show with the player future bet segment. And if you do think that the Jackets have a chance at making the playoffs, obviously that was plus 1,700 for the Jackets to make the playoffs. You would just want to go with Dean Evison to win the Jack Adams instead, because obviously it's a much higher price of plus 4,000. If the Columbus Blue Jackets were to make the playoffs, Dean Evison is winning the Jack Adams Award. There's just no question about that.
Coach of the year for
So
sure.
that's where I would recommend if you did think that they had a chance here. I'll quickly mention the few players because unfortunately for the Blue Jackets, they're a team that they really don't have a lot of player futures available. Kirill Marchenko obviously is one of those guys. His goal total is at 24 and a half. He had 23 last season, 21 in 22-23. And he is 24 years old, so he's still a young guy improving. Should be on that top line for the most part this season. So I would look at Marchenko goals over. I think he can continue to improve, continue to score more goals. Boone Jenner's at 44 and a half points. He had 35 last season in only 58 games played, 45 in points in 68 games played the season before that, 44 points in 59 games played the season before that. So unfortunately, Boone Jenner has not played a full season in a while. The 2016-2017 was the last 82 game season he's played in.
Mhm.
So he has dealt with injuries, of course. And when you're looking at betting a player's future point total for the season, you really want a guy that's healthy. If Boone Jenner stays healthy, he's hitting the over because he's going to be on that top line. Dean Evison's going to give him all the minutes that he wants. So if he stays healthy, he hits the over. But the issue is he hasn't shown lately that he can stay healthy. So I can't put my money on it. Lickens here is the interesting one at 16 and a half wins. Now, he had 13 last year, 7 the year before that, and 27 the year before that. So, depending on how you see the Jackets season going, would determine how you would bet that. But honestly, I would bet the under because obviously I think the Jackets are going to have a rough season, but also if Merzlikins does struggle and Tarasov plays better, there is no set in stone starter for the Blue Jackets. Tarasov could 100% steal the job away from Merzlikins, and if that's the case, he's not getting 17 wins in the season. So I would lean with the under. And of course, as I said, if you like the Jackets to make the playoffs, just bet Evison to win the Jack Adams because if the Jackets make the playoffs, Dean Evison is winning the Jack Adams Award. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. Kevin, we'll go to you second for this one. Not a lot of things here. How do you think Marchenko and Jenner and Merzlikins do this season?
Right.
Kevin?
Oh, is it,
It's
is it me?
sorry, yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. How I would rank it of all these odds here, I would say that the one that seems most likely to happen, in my opinion, would be the Kirill Marchenko one, given that the fact that, like I've said earlier on in the show, that his first year with the Blue Jackets, he set a new record for most goals scored by a rookie in Blue Jackets history with 21, following that up that season by this past season by getting 23 goals. So given the way that he's played so far, it's most likely safe to assume that he's probably going to continue that trajectory and continue to score more goals. So in my opinion, that would probably be the safest bet to bet on, which is Marchenko getting at least 24 goals this season. The second one, in my opinion, is Boone Jenner. Sure, being healthy, that does get in his way, but if he's healthy, then that's a good bet because he's shown he can be a good player and put up the goals, the points, the assists, and he's going to play a lot. Given being on that projected line, you would, if that's how it goes, you would assume that he's going to play a lot and put up a lot of points, especially with Sean Monahan and Kirill Marchenko. So that's number two. Now, for me, the only reason I can make an argument that Merzlikins gets more than 16 wins is that they are, because of Dean Evison, they are going to have a better defense in front of him. He's not going to put up, which is terrible defense, so better defensive structure, better team defensively in front of him. So that is going to help him, and that should help him get more wins. And if he does play better, okay, then he's going to get more wins. But I think that one is the more iffy one. Because again, Danil Tarasov has shown he's played good. He can play a good player. Had a strong second half this past season. He's probably the guy. So that one seems less likely. So I don't know. Maybe that's full. I can make a case where that could be the third one, or Dean Evison for the Jack Adams, that could be the third one as well, because after the 2015-2016 season, the Blue Jackets didn't have a good season. They got the number 3 pick, which was Dubois. The Monsters did win the Calder Cup, but generally speaking, that season was not a good season for the Blue Jackets. But the following season, Torts was able to get something out of him that I don't think any other coaches would get out of him, which is they had 51 wins that season. They won 16 games in a row and 108 points, and they did make the playoffs. And John Tortorella did get the Jack Adams Award that following season. That season, after that season was done, the offseason awards for the 2016-2017 season, John Tortorella did get the Jack Adams Award. So I'm not saying it happens, but when you think, oh, Jack Adams for Dean Evison, I think about that's what happened with Torts, or he got the best out of him and maybe he gets the best out of him. So it's interchangeable for me. Like in my opinion, I could make a case why Merzlikins could be the third one, or Dean Evison could be, the third or fourth one. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And if I had to take a pick, I would say that most likely your best odds from a betting perspective is Kirill Marchenko and Boone Jenner.
I totally agree. Lance, and even if the Jackets don't make the playoffs, but even if they're on that bubble point, I could still see Evison finishing high up for the Jack Adams. So
yeah.
Now, of course, if they do have a very bad season, then he's not going to be in the running at all. So it all kind of depends on your thoughts on the Jackets season. Lance, help us finish the show here. What are your thoughts here on the player future bets on the screen?
Marchenko's getting those goals. If he gets those top minutes, there's absolutely zero reason why he would not get 25 goals, in my opinion. I mean, he played all but 3 games last year, and he wasn't always up there in the top line. So, Jenner, also a huge reality, possibly happening, for several reasons. He's going to get a ton of minutes. He did last year, and he simply is just going to. Let's see. Boone Jenner's average time on ice was like 20 minutes and 6 seconds. So you don't see that outside of defensive guys very much. That was last season. Then we have Dean Evison this year, and he could, if he's paired up with Kirill Marchenko, I mean, that could be half his points right there. To get an assist to him. Same with Sean Monahan. So As long as those two guys get those first line minutes, those are very good possibilities of happening. Jenner just needs to some games just dial it back a half a notch so he stays injury free. And sometimes it's not his fault. It's whatever. But Merzlikins, yeah, I hate to be that guy, but I gotta go under on that one. Just especially competing with Daniil Tarasov. I mean, 41 games last year. He had 13 wins, and so 897 save percentage. You know, you gotta if Dean Everson changes up the defense. If the defense is doing good, it's possible. But if they're like last year, it's probably not going to happen. I was on Jack Adams. I laugh just because it's plus 4,000. The odds here are astronomically stacked against him. Do I personally think it's going to happen? No, probably not. But if that defensive gets fixed a little bit, and the goalies are firing all cylinders, and another addition, the Blue Jackets are probably going to be looking for another addition, comes in, and it's kind of fits well with everything. I think Monahan and Jenner are going to work great together this year. I truly think so. So, Jack Adams, personally, I wouldn't put money on it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, hey, like I said, these are like the only bets for the Jackets that there are really. So wasn't really a lot of choice,
Yeah.
unfortunately, for me to pick from. But
No, that's fair.
that's the show. Make sure to give Kevin and Lance a follow. Both of their Twitter links are in the description below. Yes, I'm very jealous of your wild puck. Kevin was showing all of his wild pucks and jerseys before the show.
I got it.
Very, very jealous.
I'm on a wild show, and I got to show off my wild stuff because this past March I was in Minnesota to see the Wild play Nashville, and I got some pucks, and also had to, get the 78 jersey, which is just absolutely awesome, and the state of hockey shoulder patch, which is cool as well.
I
So
almost like Minnesota's colors too.
I do. It's. I saw that. I'm like, damn, that's a damn good jersey. I have to get it. I have to get it, and I did. But the game I was at in March was the game when they played Nashville, and they won in overtime by pulling the goalie, and Matt Boldy scored the goal. And for reference, had the Wild, there was no penalty, and had the Wild lost that game, they would have not only lost that game, but lost the point. So it was absolutely just ballsy move by the Wild to do it, but it worked out, and it was just a fun game to be at. And since I'm on a Wild show, I just wanted to show off some of the Wild stuff I got on my Minnesota trip. And yeah, so thanks for having us on again, Terry. And go check out Brew Jackets, a fun Blue Jackets themed podcast at 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. Every Wednesday. And if you're looking for another little fun Blue Jackets themed fan group, you can go check out Union Blue Soldiers. It's a fun Blue Jackets themed fan group that I run, and we're doing our annual march to cheer on the Blue Jackets on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, 6:00 p.m. at our bar. And we're marching on to Nationwide Arena to cheer on the Blue Jackets. So thanks for having us on.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you guys on the next show. Thanks, guys.